Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Ronnie paced back and forth, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. He ran his fingers through his salt and pepper hair, struggling to process the information. This can't be right, he muttered, more to himself than to Kelly. It's not possible. Kelly looked up at her husband, her emerald eyes brimming with a mixture of confusion and fear. I know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But Ronnie, I've taken 3 tests. They're all positive. Ronnie stopped pacing and knelt in front of Kelly, taking her hands in his. He could feel the slight tremor running through her body. Hey, look at me, he said softly, waiting until her eyes met his. We'll figure this out, okay? We'll go see Dr. Jackson first thing tomorrow morning. Kelly nodded, trying to draw strength from Ronnie's calm demeanor. She glanced down at her flat stomach, covered by a loose-fitting navy blouse. The idea of a life growing inside her was both thrilling and terrifying, but mostly it felt impossible. What if... Kelly started, then hesitated. What if it's some kind of mistake? Or worse, what if something's wrong with me? Ronnie squeezed her hands gently. Let's not jump to conclusions. We need more information before we start worrying. The next morning found them sitting in Dr. Jackson's office, the air heavy with anticipation. The doctor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun, studied the test results with a furrowed brow. Well, Dr. Jackson began, looking up at the couple over her glasses. I have to admit, this is quite extraordinary. According to these tests, Kelly, you are indeed pregnant. Kelly felt the room spin slightly. She gripped the armrests of her chair, her knuckles turning white. But how? She asked, her voice cracking. I mean, I'm transgender. I can't. Dr. Jackson held up a hand, her expression softening. I understand your confusion. Medically speaking, this shouldn't be possible. However, the tests are conclusive. I'd like to do an ultrasound to confirm and gather more information. Ronnie, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. Could it be a false positive? Or maybe some kind of medical condition mimicking pregnancy? The doctor nodded thoughtfully. Those are valid questions, Ronnie. While false positives are rare, especially with multiple tests, they can happen. As for other conditions, there are a few that can produce elevated hormone levels similar to pregnancy. That's why the ultrasound is crucial. Kelly felt a mix of relief and renewed anxiety at the doctor's words. Part of her hoped it was all a mistake, that there was a logical explanation for what was happening. But another part, a part she was afraid to acknowledge, felt a glimmer of excitement at the possibility. As they followed Dr. Jackson to the ultrasound room, Kelly's mind raced with questions. How would this affect her body? What would people say? And most importantly, how would this impact her identity as a transgender woman? The cool gel on Kelly's abdomen made her flinch slightly. She stared at the ceiling, too nervous to look at the screen as Dr. Jackson moved the wand across her stomach. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the machine. Suddenly, a rapid whooshing sound filled the air. Kelly's eyes snapped to the screen, and she saw Dr. Jackson's eyebrows rise in surprise. Well, the doctor said, her voice filled with wonder. I can hardly believe it myself, but there it is. That's a heartbeat, and that, she pointed to a small blob on the screen, is your baby. Ronnie leaned in closer, his eyes wide. That's really a baby? Our baby? Dr. Jackson nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It appears to be about 8 weeks along. Everything looks healthy and normal as far as I can tell. Kelly stared at the screen, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. Joy, fear, confusion, and a deep, primal love she had never experienced before. Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached out to touch the screen. How is this possible? She whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Dr. Jackson turned off the machine and handed Kelly a towel to wipe off the gel. Honestly, I don't have an answer for you. This goes against everything we know about reproductive biology. Kelly, you're making medical history." As they left the doctor's office, Kelly and Ronnie walked in stunned silence. The busy street around them seemed muffled, as if they were in a bubble, separated from the rest of the world. Ronnie was the first to speak. "So, we're having a baby." Kelly nodded, still processing the information. "We're having a baby," she repeated, testing how the words felt on her tongue. They stopped at a small park, finding a secluded bench beneath a large oak tree. Kelly sat down, her legs feeling weak. Ronnie joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "How are you feeling?" he asked, studying her face with concern. Kelly let out a shaky laugh. "I don't even know. Happy, scared, confused. All of the above?" Ronnie pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Me too. But we're in this together, okay?" Kelly nodded, leaning into his embrace. As they sat there, the reality of their situation began to sink in. This wasn't just about them anymore. They were responsible for a new life, one that defied all medical explanations. "We need to tell Lucy," Kelly said suddenly, sitting up straight. "And the girls, they should hear it from us before anyone else finds out." Ronnie agreed, knowing that their unique situation would likely draw attention once word got out. They decided to invite Lucy and the girls over for dinner that evening, hoping the familiar setting would help ease the shock of the news. As they prepared dinner, moving around each other in the kitchen with practiced ease, Kelly found herself constantly touching her stomach. It was still flat, with no outward sign of the life growing inside her. Yet knowing it was there changed everything. The doorbell rang just as Ronnie was pulling a lasagna out of the oven. Kelly smoothed down her burgundy sweater, took a deep breath, and went to answer the door. Lucy stood on the porch, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Behind her were Samantha and Chloe, 16 and 14 respectively, both bearing a striking resemblance to their mother. "Hey," Kelly greeted them, forcing a smile. "Come on in." As they entered, Chloe immediately sensed the tension. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her blue eyes darting between Kelly and Ronnie. "Let's sit down," Ronnie suggested, guiding everyone to the dining room. "We have some news to share." Once everyone was seated, plates of steaming lasagna in front of them, Kelly took a deep breath. She looked at Lucy, then at her daughters, feeling a surge of love for her unconventional family. "There's no easy way to say this," Kelly began, her voice shaky, "so I'm just going to come out with it. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucy's fork clattered against her plate as it slipped from her fingers. Samantha and Chloe exchanged confused glances. "I'm sorry, what?" Lucy finally said, her brow furrowed. "Kelly, how is that even possible?" Kelly shook her head. "We don't know. We've seen Dr. Jackson, had tests done, even an ultrasound. It's real. I'm about 8 weeks along." Chloe, always the more outspoken of the two sisters, leaned forward. "But Mom, you're transgender. You can't get pregnant, right?" "That's what we thought too, sweetheart," Ronnie chimed in. "But somehow it's happened." Samantha, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Is the baby okay? Is it healthy?" Kelly felt a rush of warmth at her daughter's concern. "As far as Dr. Jackson can tell, yes. Everything looks normal." Lucy set down her glass of water, her hand trembling slightly. "This is incredible. I don't even know what to say. How are you feeling about all this?" Kelly exchanged a glance with Ronnie before answering. "Honestly, we're still in shock. It's exciting and terrifying all at once. But mostly we're worried about what this means for our family, for the community." Samantha's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Oh my God, the media is going to go crazy over this. You'll be like the first transgender woman to ever get pregnant." The table fell silent as the implications of Samantha's words sank in. Kelly felt a knot form in her stomach, one that had nothing to do with morning sickness. "We haven't really thought about that yet," Ronnie admitted. "But you're right, Sam. This is going to attract a lot of attention." Lucy reached across the table, placing her hand over Kelly's. "Whatever happens, we're here for you. Both of you, all three of you, I guess," she added with a small smile. Chloe, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "I think it's amazing," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "Mom, you're making history. This could be huge for transgender rights and visibility." Kelly felt tears prick at her eyes. "Oh, Chloe," she said softly. "I hadn't even thought about it that way." "She's right," Samantha chimed in. "This could change everything. It's like the ultimate proof that transgender women are women." Ronnie nodded slowly. "That's true. But it also means a lot of scrutiny, a lot of questions, some of which might not be very kind." The conversation continued late into the night, long after the lasagna had gone cold. They discussed the potential impact on their lives, the challenges they might face, and how to handle the inevitable media storm. As Lucy and the girls were leaving, Chloe hung back. She threw her arms around Kelly, hugging her tightly. "I'm really happy for you, Mom," she whispered. "You're going to be an amazing parent. Again." Kelly hugged her back, feeling a surge of love and gratitude for her family. As she watched them drive away, she placed a hand on her stomach, marveling at the miracle growing inside her. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, legal consultations, and hushed conversations. Kelly and Ronnie decided to keep the news private for as long as possible, knowing that once it got out, their lives would never be the same. As Kelly's first trimester came to an end, they faced the challenge of telling their extended family and close friends. They decided to host a small gathering at their home, inviting only those closest to them. The day of the gathering arrived, and Kelly stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. Her burgundy dress hugged her figure, showing the slightest hint of a bump that wasn't there before. She ran her hands over it, still in awe of the changes happening to her body. Ronnie appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You look beautiful," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck. Kelly leaned back against him, drawing strength from his presence. "Are we ready for this?" she asked, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "As ready as we'll ever be," he replied with a reassuring smile. Their guests began to arrive, filling the house with the buzz of conversation and laughter. Kelly's parents, Ronnie's sister and her husband, and a handful of their closest friends mingled in the living room, oblivious to the bombshell that was about to drop. Once everyone had arrived, Ronnie clinked his glass to get their attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the couple. Kelly took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We have some news to share with you. It's something unexpected, something that we're still trying to wrap our heads around." She paused, looking around at the curious faces of their loved ones. "I'm pregnant," she said simply, watching as confusion, shock, and disbelief rippled through the room. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kelly's mother stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Sweetheart, what do you mean? How is that possible?" Kelly explained about the tests, the doctor's visits, the ultrasounds. As she spoke, she could see the shock on their faces slowly giving way to wonder and, in some cases, joy. Ronnie's sister was the first to break the silence that followed Kelly's explanation. She rushed forward, enveloping Kelly in a tight hug. "Oh my God, I'm going to be an aunt!" she exclaimed, tears in her eyes. This seemed to break the spell, and suddenly everyone was talking at once. Questions flew from all directions. How far along was she? Did they know how it happened? Was the baby healthy? What were they going to do? As Kelly and Ronnie fielded questions, they could see their loved ones grappling with the implications of this miracle. Kelly's father, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. "Kelly, honey," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "I don't pretend to understand how this is possible, but I want you to know that your mother and I are here for you, no matter what." Kelly felt tears well up in her eyes as she hugged her father. The acceptance and love from her family meant more to her than she could express. As the evening wore on, the initial shock gave way to excitement and planning. Kelly's mother and Ronnie's sister were already discussing baby shower ideas, while their friends offered support and advice. Later that night, after the last guest had left, Kelly and Ronnie collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained but relieved. "That went better than I expected," Ronnie said, pulling Kelly close. She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "It did, but this was the easy part. Telling the world, that's going to be a whole different story." Ronnie sighed, knowing she was right. "We'll face it together," he promised, placing a hand on her growing bump. As they sat there in the quiet of their home, Kelly felt a mix of emotions wash over her. Fear of the unknown, joy for the life growing inside her, and a steely determination to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few weeks were a delicate balance of maintaining normalcy and preparing for the inevitable public revelation. Kelly continued her work as a graphic designer, grateful that she could work from home and avoid prying eyes. Ronnie, a high school teacher, found himself fielding innocent questions from observant students who noticed his distraction. They had agreed to wait until the 20-week mark before going public, hoping to have as much information as possible before facing the media storm. Dr. Jackson had become not just their physician, but also a confidant and advisor, helping them navigate the uncharted waters of Kelly's unique pregnancy. As the 20-week appointment approached, Kelly found herself both eager and apprehensive. She wanted to know more about the baby growing inside her, but each piece of new information also brought them closer to the moment when they would have to share their story with the world. The day of the appointment arrived, and Kelly lay on the examination table, her heart pounding as Dr. Jackson prepared for the ultrasound. Ronnie held her hand, his thumb tracing soothing circles on her skin. As the image appeared on the screen, Kelly felt her breath catch in her throat. The fuzzy blob she had seen at 8 weeks had transformed into a clearly recognizable baby. She could make out the curve of the spine, the round head, tiny hands and feet. Dr. Jackson smiled warmly. "Everything looks perfect," she assured them. "Growth is right on track, and all the organs are developing normally. Would you like to know the gender?" Kelly and Ronnie exchanged a glance, having discussed this moment countless times. They nodded in unison. "It's a girl," Dr. Jackson announced, her voice filled with warmth. Tears spilled down Kelly's cheeks as she stared at the screen, overwhelmed by love for this tiny person she had yet to meet. Ronnie squeezed her hand, his own eyes glistening. As they left the doctor's office, clutching printouts of the ultrasound, the reality of their situation hit them anew. They had a daughter on the way, a miracle child who would change not just their lives, but potentially the lives of transgender individuals everywhere. "We need to start planning how we're going to announce this," Ronnie said as they drove home. "We can't keep it a secret much longer." Kelly nodded, her hand resting protectively over her growing bump. "I know. I think we should reach out to some LGBT organizations first. Get their advice on how to handle this. We're not just speaking for ourselves anymore." Ronnie agreed, and over the next week, they had several meetings with leaders in the transgender community. The reactions ranged from cautious optimism to concerns about potential backlash. Everyone agreed, however, that their story had the potential to be a powerful force for change and understanding. With input from their community leaders and their family, Kelly and Ronnie decided to approach a respected journalist known for her fair and sensitive coverage of LGBT issues. They would do one in-depth interview telling their story on their own terms before releasing a statement to the wider media. The day of the interview arrived, and Kelly stood in front of her closet, struggling to choose an outfit. She wanted to look professional and put together, but also showcase her pregnancy. Finally, she settled on a fitted emerald green dress that accentuated her bump without being too revealing. As they sat in their living room, waiting for the journalist to arrive, Kelly felt a flutter in her stomach. She gasped, placing a hand over the spot. "What is it?" Ronnie asked, alarmed. Kelly smiled, tears springing to her eyes. I think I just felt her move." Ronnie's face lit up, and he placed his hand next to hers, hoping to feel it too. As if on cue, there was another tiny movement. In that moment, as they sat with their hands on Kelly's stomach, feeling their daughter move for the first time, all the fear and uncertainty melted away. This was real. This was their family. The doorbell rang, breaking the spell. They shared a look, drawing strength from each other before Ronnie went to answer the door. The journalist, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor, entered the room. She shook hands with both of them, her gaze lingering for a moment on Kelly's visible bump. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me," she said as they all sat down. "I understand how sensitive and important this story is. I want you to know that I'm here to listen and to help you tell your story accurately and respectfully." Kelly nodded, feeling a sense of calm settle over her. "We appreciate that. This isn't just our story. It's a story that could impact so many lives. We want to get it right." As the interview began, Kelly and Ronnie shared their journey, from the shock of discovering the pregnancy to the joy of seeing their daughter on the ultrasound. They talked about their fears, their hopes, and the potential impact their story could have on the transgender community. "What would you say to those who might claim this pregnancy somehow invalidates your identity as a transgender woman?" the journalist asked, her tone gentle but probing. Kelly took a deep breath, having anticipated this question. "I would say that my ability to carry a child doesn't define my gender. I am a woman, regardless of my reproductive capabilities. This pregnancy is a miracle, one that we don't fully understand yet. But it doesn't change who I am. If anything, it's shown me the incredible diversity of the human experience." As the interview wound down, the journalist asked one final question. "What do you hope people will take away from your story?" Ronnie and Kelly exchanged a glance before Kelly answered. "We hope people will see that love and family can take many forms. That biology isn't destiny, and most of all, that miracles can happen when you least expect them." After the journalist left, promising to let them review the article before publication, Kelly and Ronnie sat in silence for a moment, processing the experience. "You were amazing," Ronnie said, pulling Kelly into a hug. She smiled against his chest. "We were amazing. Together." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.